We back. InView Media Pod. It's been a minute, but we're here. And we have our good friend, Paula Stafford.
Hello. Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
through.
for coming.
And of course, we have Ariana right next to me.
Hello.
And today on the switchboard, we have Mr. Jordan.
Yay, Jordan.
You can say a couple words, Jordan.
Hello.
Shoulders
Welcome.
over there. Yeah, so I've actually known Paula since around the time that I actually started doing photography, but I only got to see you briefly as far as like when you started at KW.
Yes.
That was around the time that I had started, and then from there you had moved on to going on to EXP, I believe.
Yes.
And we have, I would say, due to the factor that I didn't see you anymore from the office, it became more like you started using another photographer, because when you met me, I don't think you ever used me at KW because you had just started. You transitioned, and I don't know if it was because I wasn't there as far as like present that you remembered who did photography, or maybe you never got my number. And from there, like I remember you telling me like, oh, I had a photographer, and I don't know what it was. I think it was distance. That's kind of where you started reaching out as far as like who does local photography out in the Antelope Valley. And we got reconnected via, I'm going to say, either a mutual friend or another realtor that was or is currently using us. Am I correct?
Yes. My photographer had moved to San Diego. And so, but I did remember you.
Yeah.
And I just reached out to you from remembering you from KW
Okay.
because there was a lot of people using you, starting to use you, because it was real brief that I was there when you were there walking around and stuff. Very brief. So what I did was I stalked you a little bit, and I went to those realtors listings that I knew used you and looked at your photos from them.
Oh, okay.
And so decided to just call you
Okay.
myself.
You had my number?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I probably.
I looked you up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I knew your name because I knew
gotcha.
it was Irvin with no G.
Oh, I got you. So you basically went on to Facebook and typed,
yes.
Oh, like, all right, he does the photos. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
As far as like you transitioning from KW to EXP, I want to get into those topics as far as like what's the difference,
Sure.
because of course those are the things that I don't even know about because I'm just a photographer, and I'm pretty sure Ari has no idea what's the difference between an EXP, KW, Century 21. We just kind of service, the brokerages, and that's it. That's all we do is just service, and we have no idea the ins and outs as far as like what is a realtor. But before I ask you that question, I kind of want to see if you could give us a brief bio as far as like, so our audience could actually know who Paula is. Like, were you born in the AV? Were you born in the Valley? That kind of thing.
Yes, I say I was born in the real Valley.
Okay.
I was born in San Fernando Valley. I was actually born in Pacoima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I grew up down there in Sunland-Tahunga.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to school down there. I moved up here in '84, so I've been here a very long time. My husband is born and raised here.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's been here, seen all the changes.
Wow.
It's huge. Yeah.
And you moved from Pacoima to?
No, I lived in Sunland-Tahunga.
Okay.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, gotcha.
And I moved up here, yes, in
Okay.
'84 from down there.
But you actually lived in Pacoima for a little bit?
No, the hospital was there. I was born in. I
Gotcha.
never
Okay.
lived there.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
Yeah.
By any chance, did you ever go visit Richie Valence's house?
No. My dad probably did.
Yeah.
I did not.
I
No.
searched it up once when I was out in Pacoima, and every time, or I don't know what maybe I had watched it recently, the movie, and there was a little scene in the movie where the mom's like, oh, Paul bought us a little house in Pacoima when they were moving out of the little farm, I guess in the beginning of the movie. She mentioned Pacoima. I'm like, oh, I'm going to research his house, and it was like 10 minutes away from my listing, so I actually
found it?
Yeah, I found it.
Wow.
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, I took
Very
a picture. Well, I had my skateboard, and I just rode my skateboard, and I was just kind of acting like I was filming myself, but I was literally filming the house. I didn't want to look like a creeper.
That's
But yeah,
funny.
it was fun. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure no one actually goes and looks for this little house because it looks like a normal little house,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't even know that it's a famous house. And I looked it up too, as far as like on the LA County, and technically they can't sell it, so they just rent it out. So it's a, I don't know what they call it, like a monument kind of
Like
thing.
a historical
Historic,
landmark.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was really nice. I was like, oh, this is cool. And just looks like a little normal house. I'm like, in Pacoima. I'm like, okay, this is cool.
Fun.
Yeah, but that was just my little story.
Yeah. Your little Pacoima story.
I didn't even know he was from Pacoima.
I didn't either.
No, well, they moved out there. Yeah, they moved out there. Once he became famous, he bought his mom that house. Yeah, so that was his mom's house.
Oh.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, I'm going to go visit his mom's house. So from the valley, and then you met your husband, then you came down to the Antelope Valley. From here, were you right away going into real estate, or was there an idea of real estate?
No, I've only been a realtor for 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, I actually, while my kids were little, I transcribed for court reporters.
Oh.
So, yeah, I always stayed home with my kids. I was not I just couldn't send them off. So I stayed home with them. So at night when they slept, I worked and transcribed until they got older, you know, and they could do stuff on their own during the day, go to school, stuff like that. And then I worked during the day. But so I did that for a long time. And then, you know, my husband opened a business, MGS Custom Bikes. He's a motorcycle builder here in the AV. And I worked there for many years. And then we opened retail stores. So he had his motorcycle shop, which was also retail in the front. And then I had a little tiny retail store on Lancaster Boulevard. And then I moved into the big building on Lancaster Boulevard with the 3-story building where the theaters are. And I owned a store called Forge.
Oh.
And then I opened Forge in the mall also. So I had those 2 stores. And then one thing led to another, and I closed those stores down and became a realtor.
Oh, okay. And
So
this
that's
is
the
while
short-
your kids were
that's
still
so
getting a little older?
By the time that I had Forge, my kids were old. The youngest one was in high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they
So-
were young adults already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was a decision that you consciously made as far as like, I don't want to do too much because it might distract me from raising my kids, or was it just the period of time that it just happened that way?
Yeah, it just happened that way. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is really cool. Was Forge like a clothing store then?
Forge was everything. I had clothes. I had decorative household goods. I had bath salts, soaps, lotions. I had olive oils, vinegars, balsamic vinegars. It's the only store on the boulevard that it was kind of like an anthropology type store. It had kind of like a lot of everything.
Yeah.
And so, it was quite an adventure for sure.
Yeah. Retail, right?
Retail.
How was it?
Retail. It's fun because I got to shop because I would go every week during Christmas. I would go more down to LA, load up my car, go down, shop all day, come back, price tag everything, hang it, put it all out on display and everything. And that was fun. But there's absolutely no money in retail. Anything you get back, you have to pay your bills and then go back and buy more stuff. I mean, it was just, it was.
Unless you're like a big corporate.
Right. And in the Antelope Valley, if you notice that a lot of mainstream stores are here, well, they're backed by the other stores like Macy's. Yeah, there's a Macy's here, but there's Macy's all over the country and they all support, you know.
Yeah.
So when you're just one little person with 2 big rents and a lot of payroll, it's not easy. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, no, I understand that as far as like.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of people.
Yeah.
Interesting stories. I'm pretty
Lots
sure.
of interesting stories. Lots of, especially on Lancaster Boulevard. Lots of interesting stories.
What year was this?
7-8 years ago. Well, okay, so I had the 2 stores. So one store, the Boulevard closed before the mall. So the mall store probably closed 7 years ago. So the Boulevard store closed 9 years ago.
Okay, so it was already, because I know they had updated the Boulevard a
Yeah,
while ago.
that's
So
when that was.
It was after.
It was during.
Oh,
we
it was
were
during.
part of that whole process.
Oh, wow.
We were part of that process, and then we lasted there for 5 years.
Oh, so during that process, how was the crowd? Because for a while, it was kind of getting a little sketchy.
When it first started, it was amazing because the people who redid the Boulevard had a lot of security on the Boulevard.
Yeah, okay.
And it was, people came because there was something to do. It was different. We had farmers market. We had the theater that had, like indie movies and all kind of that kind of stuff that attracted people. And then all the really good restaurants that came, the deli and all the other little restaurants, the brewery. It was really nice at first.
Yeah.
And then once it didn't keep up that pace.
The revenue.
Yeah. And the people who came and redid the whole place, they kind of started like leaving and they opened all those businesses and kind of just hired us to work in them, and then they started leaving and said, okay, here, this is yours now. And then when they left, and they were the big money guys, so when they left, it kind of started
it basically got it a little bit more lenient as far as like who was walking around. For a while I did notice that too, because it is, I guess, a nicer place in the Antelope Valley to walk around with. As far as like you have everything via very close walking distance, like breweries and then little clothing stores and the movie theater. For a while, I did notice it was more of like, okay, I do see more of a soliciting as far as like people soliciting, and it became more of like, okay, what happened to this location to the point where it wasn't attractive anymore, even for myself to even wanting to go. I don't know what it was. It like you said, it could have been just the city that they didn't want to fund it anymore as far as like security, even though the police station is nearby?
The sheriff's station is right on the corner. And I mean, their hands are tied too, so I can't, put blame on anybody, and they do still have the mall, the security.
Some security.
That they're on the bicycles or they walk sometimes now. And so, but at first, when we were there, the sheriffs were walking the boulevard, and then that changed. That went away.
Yeah, that's unfortunate though. I do see it kind of going a little bit further out now, where it's like getting a little cleaner again. I don't really see the soliciting as much. They did clean up that Sierra Highway where the train station was at.
That was a big issue.
Yeah, it was getting a little bit where it was becoming tent city for a while. And I remember I did a film a week before they cleaned it. And it was through Grace Resources, the church, that I was running the marathon. So we're raising funds for the homeless. And I remember they had me do it. I did it willingly. They wanted a highlighter reel so we could promote what we were doing for Grace Resources, like for the marathon. And I went and started interviewing the homeless around there. And it was more of the idea that they didn't even know what was happening. They didn't know what was going on. And I was asking just personal questions like, oh, where are you coming from? A lot of them were from the valley. A lot of them were mentally ill, as far as like, it was more of the idea that I thought that they just don't want to work. I spoke to an older lady, and it was just more her idea of her little tent was a house. And she would say, oh, my kids are going to come visit me next week. And I was like, wow, it's just like, you don't know until you're inside, until you actually see the situation as far as like where the people are at. Yeah. But I do remember asking them, like, what do you feel about them cleaning this area? And none of them knew how to answer that, because none of them knew. It was a secret until it happened. And of course they did clean it up. And now it's like, I think they fenced it too. That little section, they fenced it. But yeah, it was for a minute. I was like, wow, it's becoming like the valley. Yeah, but like what could we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah. Any interesting stories as far as like you working in retails? I know there's a lot of good stories out there, but I want to hear the bad ones.
the ones where a lady, oh my goodness, this lady stole clothes. They stole from us all the time. Anytime we saw empty hangers, it was like, oh my gosh, they got something else. What'd they get this time? Well, this one time, this lady ran out with a dress, and one of my cashiers was like, she just ran out. So she went down the boulevard. Well, my husband's business was at the end of the boulevard. So I called him. I said, hey, there's a lady running down the street with some of my stuff. And he comes out, and I don't know how it happened, and then the guy who owned the theater went one way. My husband went the other way. And then my husband ended up getting in his car, and they were driving around. They found her, and she was wearing it. She put it on, and called the cops, right at the beginning, and it took them a long time. But then when my husband got her, and then the guy that owned the theater got her, and they had her in my husband's parking lot, and she called the cops because they, So I don't know, whatever went on in that situation. The cops get her and then bring her to the store and had me say, yeah, that's my dress or whatever. So they got her and nothing ever happened. Nothing ever did. Yeah, stuff like that. One time there was a person running up and down the boulevard with knives.
Wow.
And so, and he came in the store, and I had a really brave girl working for me, and she shooed him out of there, but then she locked all the doors, and then he was banging on the windows and stuff, and just crazy stuff.
Wow.
There across the street there was like a little alleyway between the building that goes to the back parking lot from the other side of the street from where I was. One day my friend who owned a store on that side walked through that hallway, and there was all this like just terrible stuff inside inside there.
I know the little hallway. I took pictures there.
Yeah, it was bad.
What'd you take
All
pictures
kinds
of?
of stuff. Dead things, burned up things. No good.
Man.
But the food, oh my goodness, we'd go to the deli all the time, and it's just, and then when Beck's opened, and
Beck's was big.
and it was so good when it first opened. First time I had a restaurant that served sweet potato mash, it's like, and their brisket was so good. And it was a very, honestly, it was the best learning experience for me in becoming a realtor, because I understand better the consumer, which I deal with the consumer on a different level, but it's still consumer money for sure, because you have to really know what's coming in, what's going out when you're running a huge business like that. So that makes me in a good spot where I am now. And just the fact of person to person, because even with my clients that would walk into the store, I would always, I don't care what time it was, if it was I closed at 9 and it was 9:02 and someone wanted in,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure time management is a big one.
Time management is huge.
Just because for us, it's more of just like, we understand that your time is just as important as our time. So having your own business, you're trying to navigate everyone's time, and you're trying to manage your time so that everyone sees that you're managing your time, so that everyone follows, because we all know how employees can be sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think from the transition from your, I guess, retail, what was the idea then from going into retail, then going into real estate?
So aside from the 2 Ford stores that I had, my husband's business was retail as well. So, and dealing with clients. So he would build custom motorcycles, totally different animal there. So a lot of things to deal with. So I've always, I guess now that I look back, the only job I've ever really had was in high school. I worked at a fish and chips place. Other than that, I've been self-employed basically. And so that is something that, being a realtor, you're kind of self-employed too. So all of those stages contributed to my work ethic that I have now. And always, even when I was translating for court reporters, and I had a lot of court reporters, I always wanted them to think they were my only one. Like, I would never say, oh, I'm busy with this, I'll get to you later. I always want, and same with my clients, as I never want to have an excuse of, oh, I was working with someone else, I didn't have time for you. I always want everyone to feel like they're my only one, So I just try to really put them first, no matter.
Do you think that's taught, or is it something that is ingrained already with somebody?
I think it can be taught. For me, it was just all the years of experience and trying to focus on people's reactions to how I deal with the situation.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like learned through the years, processes.
No, because I've always been my thing is time. Like, I can't be late to anything. It's just since I was little though. Like, and I would get mad at my mom all the time. She was always late to everything, all the time. And
there's always one in the family.
It's like her Bible study, she was late. Her church service, she was late. And I'm like, and she was the one forcing me to go to these things. And I didn't even want to go. And I was yet telling her, like, we need to get ready by this time and leave by this time. And she was getting ready literally when we needed to leave. I'm like, and that caused anxiety. I don't know what it was. Like, and for me, like, even when she would get ready, knowing that we were already late, in my head, I'm like, I don't want to go anymore. But until this day, it has to be that way. Like I have to be somewhere 10 to 15 minutes early.
It's probably because of her, right? Like
don't
because
know.
she was late all the time and it caused you that anxiety. It pushed you to
Maybe.
like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Like I don't want to be that
but
person.
even before the anxiety started, how would I know
Right.
like how to like actually timeline her schedule? I'm like, I know what you're gonna do. You're not just gonna get dressed. You're just basically gonna look at everything that you have on, look at all the shoes, matching the colors, and then your makeup and your hair. And then from there, someone's gonna call you on the phone, and you're not gonna say, "Hey, I'm busy. I'll call you back in an hour or two." You're gonna literally talk to them, and then now you're late, and I'm like, I'm just sitting here. But I don't know. That's what I was asking. Is like if it's taught or if it's an experience that it's learned.
I don't, it can be taught, but I don't know if it necessarily is always that, because I wasn't taught that. But my husband and my daughter, okay, so if my husband says, okay, I'll be there at 11, that means 11 o'clock he's going to get off the couch, get on his shoes, put on his, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, me too.
I can't.
Yeah, I was always wondering that too, because Hispanics are always late. Because I've gone to concerts.
It's definitely a stereotype.
Yeah, I've gone to concerts and it says 8 o'clock. They don't start until 9.
Wow.
I was like, they already know, even with the concerts. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that used to frustrate me too, because like my friends would invite me to things like, oh, we're having like my niece's birthday and it's starting at 4 o'clock. And then I'd get there at like 3:50. Nobody's there. Nothing's going on. Everyone's still running around trying to put things together. And I'm like... Then finally everyone arrives like 2 hours later. And then it started to just like click in me. I'm like, okay, well, nobody's going to be there.
Yeah.
So I'm just,
Well, it
if they say
perpetuates.
3,
It's like
it's going to
that.
be 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that makes you later.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when it comes to like friend gatherings, that's my same thought process. I'm usually the last one to show up and the first one to leave. Because I'm not a person to socialize in groups gatherings to begin with. And if I show up early and no one's there, I'm going to be bored. And then people are going to show up and I feel like I'm now the greeter. I don't want to be the greeter to anybody. And I have to wait for everybody to show up late. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to show up late and then basically just hi, bye, and I'm out. Just so that they could say, hey, you showed up.
There.
You at least made the attempt to.
Yeah.
But when it comes to business. It's more of it's mandatory. And I try to ingrain it to everybody that works in the team too. Because I know it's your time that we're kind of taking away when we say we're going to show up at 11. I don't want it to be where you're waiting on us because you're also having your clients on hold because they're allowing us to be there at a certain time. Sometimes it's unoccupied, so of course there's no pressure there. But if it's tenant occupied, it's a lot more pressure because it's not even owner occupied. And sometimes tenants are a little bit more aggressive.
A lot of times, yeah.
They feel more entitled than the owner.
Exactly.
More than half the time. So I don't want to ever say, hey, I put you in a bad position. Then now you have to call your seller. And now we have to reschedule because we're 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late. Because I've gone to listings where I'm early and the tenants are like, how long is it going to take you? And I'm like, well, the realtor should have already relayed this to you. It's going to take an hour. They're like, you have 5 minutes. Yeah, I've had tenants tell me they have so much entitlement.
They do. They have all the rights.
Yeah, they have so much entitlement on the idea that, hey, this is my house. And I'm like, they don't even clean half the time. And they're not putting me pressure as far as like the work that I need to deliver to you guys. So I always show up 10 minutes early. That way, just in case they tell me like, hey, what time you were going to start? I was going to start 10 minutes after technically going in. So if you're giving me 5 minutes, technically I have 15 minutes. So you have to give me those 15 minutes. And I've actually done houses in 15 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're not well done, of course. And
they're probably well done. They're just not perfectly done.
No, they're not.
You guys.
No, they're not well done on that idea because I've gone to listings where the tenants won't even open the door, and once they open the door, it's just a disaster in there. And I'm like, you can't. There's nothing that I could do to fix it. And then I'm basically texting the realtor behind their backs. I'm like, are you sure you want me to?
Sure you want video?
But of course, it's more of just like they just need those photos, just so that they can list
something.
Them. Yeah, something. Yeah, and I've gotten yelled at too. It is what it is. Tenants are weird.
Yeah.
Very
it's that entitled
people.
thing. Yeah.
Neighbors like that.
Oh yeah, neighbors yell at me.
Well, that's when you do the drone. That's when they.
They'll get bad at the drone.
The drone, they yell at me. They also yell at me if I'm parked next to their house. I think Ariana's only. I try my best not to show my
like,
emotion as far as like if something happens at a listing and a tenant or something aggressive or negative happens, I try not to show it at home, or I try not to show it with them. So it happens over there, but they don't know that it happened. I just come and like, hi, like nothing. But unfortunately, it happened when I was talking to her on the phone.
And I know, we're on the phone, and then I just can hear in the background some, and then Aaron's like, what? I'm like, this is public parking. This is a street. This is public. He's like, get on. And I could hear the guy like cursing in the background, and I'm just like, oh, should I get off the phone? Do you need to handle that? He's like, no, it's okay.
It is public parking. What the heck?
Yeah, no, that was the only time that I could honestly say that Ariana has actually heard me yell at somebody. I was just, well, my thing is I tried my best to stay stable as much as possible, even when the person's just crazy like that. At that moment, the guy was parked in front of my car, and there was a car in front of his car. So I thought I was blocking his him getting out of his parking space. That's my idea. He's like, "Oh, can you move your car?" And I'm like, "Oh, am I blocking you? I'll back off. You know, I'll back up from your car just a little bit." And he's like, "Oh, could you move it over there?" But in my head, I'm like, "Why am I going to move it? It's just public parking." So I backed it a little bit. I was talking on the phone because at the time I was waiting for the realtor. And then all of a sudden, he just keeps waiting in his car, but I know he had enough room to move out. So I didn't mind. I'm like, oh, he's probably waiting for somebody or something's going on. I didn't think that he was that crazy at the moment. And I called Ariana because the realtor was late and I didn't have access to the house. So there was already a situation going on prior. And it was like my niece's birthday. And I was trying to get to my niece's birthday.
But you're the last one there anyway, so.
And it was in, I don't even know where it was. It was far away, too. It was like the listing was like an hour and a half away.
Oh, yeah, like over in Victorville.
Yeah, it was in Victorville.
Somewhere.
So it was last minute, too, that I scheduled it. And in my family, we're big on family. Like my family's like, we're very family oriented. So if I decide, hey, I can't work because of family, something happens with the family, like a birthday or an event or something, I'm committed to that. But for some reason, that day just did not go the way that I wanted it to go.
Yeah, it was so many things came up.
Yeah, so many things happened where that house was listed for one of my other employees. Unfortunately, he couldn't do it last minute, so I had to do it. I'm like, okay, now we're just switching calendars and doing all this other stuff. So I did it. So I was already upset that I had to like not help my family with my niece's birthday.
It was your niece's first birthday, so it wasn't like any birthday. Yeah, it was her very first birthday. So it was important.
And then, of course, the day before, we got another call for another event for that same day for the evening. So I had to miss the morning and the evening. So I only had the afternoon for my niece. And I was already late because the realtor was late. He didn't give me the right key or something. So everything started piling up real quick. And then this crazy person comes through. And I was very polite. I'm like, oh, I'm just here for the realtor. I'm just waiting. I already did that outside. And he's like, could you move your car over there? And I was like, I'll move it back. And of course, when I was talking to Ari, because something happened with the calendar too, he basically started yelling. And like I said, I try my best to stay composed in every situation that I can. And I don't think Ari has ever seen me mad or ever has seen me like yell at anybody.
He yells at me all the time.
I do not, you liar.
I mean, I've seen you like frustrated and get like, you know, a little like frustrated. But in terms of like actually angry and upset, that for sure was like one of the few times.
Yeah, so it was a younger guy. He was like maybe 28 or 27. He comes up to my door, but he was already yelling. He was like, why are you being rude? Why are you being like this? He was telling me these things. Wow. And I'm like, what are you saying? Like, and he's like, why can't you just park across the street? Or he was pointing at different locations. I'm like, and then that's where my logic as far as like me becoming a lawyer comes through. And I started stating law. I'm like, is this public? Yes. Is this private? No. Am I impeding your way? No. And then I was just getting louder and louder and louder, and he was just looking at me. I'm like, so now what you have to do is you have to back off, but I was really loud, and I was on the phone with Ari, and I didn't realize I was on the phone with her anymore because I was yelling at him. I was like, you better back off now because I'm going to get out of my car, and I'm going to have you move your car. And then I just walked off, and he was like, oh, and he just walked away. And then I don't know if I apologized to Ari on the phone. I was like, I'm so sorry, Ari. I didn't mean to yell.
I was like, I mean, You're stating facts though. Like that is true. Like it is public parking.
And then what if you go across the street and the guy across the street doesn't want you parking there?
Yeah, but
no
stuff
good.
like that happens as far as like.
Okay, so I was not the realtor that was late.
No. It was a new client.
Okay.
It was a new client.
Yeah.
But it was all right. Like it happens, like I got home, no one knew.
Yeah.
Started setting up the cake and people were talking to me. I'm like, all right, now I have to go to another event. I was like, didn't we tell you? Like, oh no.
Oh no. No, that's one thing I do have to say. You guys are. I always try to be early. Also, and I do have some things that are far away and sometimes traffic. But I think I've been like maybe 5 minutes late to one or two of them. But I'm usually early as well, and it doesn't matter how early I am. Whoever's supposed to be there is there first.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't wait for any. Yeah.
My position as far as like for everybody in the team is that I want them to take that mindset as well. I don't know if it's because my mom put it in me because she was late to everything, but it worked out. Where now it works out for my business. Like everybody appreciates it. Like I do want to be early. To anything that I do involving anybody. Like if it's your time, I'm going to respect it just as much as I would want you to respect my time. Because I don't know what's going to happen if you need to leave earlier and you're just going to open the door, or you just want me to have access. Because we do have realtors that need to go do other stuff, and sometimes they don't even show up. And then we're calling them and I'm like, hey, we need the key, and they're not answering. So it just, for me, just kind of like there's little things could happen where it basically makes us late to the next listing, or it makes us late to something that we had for our families or our friends, or so I always keep that in mind. It's like I don't want to do that to somebody else because I already know how I am when someone does it to me and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate though. Like I hope that people that are in entrepreneurs, just because you were in retail, and you were technically the owner, like I said, you had to manage other people's time, not just yourselves, and you were the example. So if you are going to show up late, or if you're doing something that is technically lazy, they're going to basically just recreate or copycat because they're seeing it. Hey, it's okay. Paula's doing it. She's the boss. So I'm going to basically show up 5 minutes late. It's okay. She's showing up 5 minutes late. And I think it should be the opposite. You should not say what you want. You should just do it. And then that way they could just follow through. But unfortunately, it happens where certain people just...
There's certain people like your mom. They're just always going to be late.
Always late. Always late. I don't know what it is, though. Like, I can't do it. Like, every time she says, hey, you want to go? Nope. I'm sorry. And also dates, too. When I go on dates with girls, I always tell them a certain time. But in my head, I'm like, okay, 30 minutes of a gap. I'm going to give you 30 minutes because I already know. Because I don't want to put it in my head where I'm anxious too.
Yeah.
Because I already know how I am and I already know how they are too. So if I say, hey, let's meet up at 11, it's more than likely they're going to show up like at 11:15. So I already have it prepared in my head. Even if they show up at 11, cool. But in my head, I'm like,
you're giving the grace period.
Yeah, because in my head, I have to put it in my head that that's the time that we're going to meet. Because if not, I'm just anxious and I just don't know what to do. I'm like, it's just like.
But do they like text you and like, hey, I'm running a little late, or I'll be there in like 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Do they say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's how, that's the,
so
the habit of just the routine of
you're already anticipating that they
might.
You know the people in your life that are going to be on time, that are going to be late.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's kind of where I have to put it in my head. I'm like, okay, let's just. It's 11, but in my head it's at 11:30.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
But if they show up at 11.
Great.
Even
it's a bonus.
Funny.
Brownie points.
Yeah. Maybe date number 2.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, but that's just who I am, though. Like I said, it's a good way to go about if you have a business, because now you're managing yourself and you're managing other people's time and you're managing other people's time that is involved with other people. So for me, it's worked out. It's definitely worked out for sure.
Definitely.
Now going into the KW to transition into the EXP. If you could just kind of give us a brief idea of an example of like I guess I would want to ask, as a photographer to a realtor and anybody that's out there that's wanting to be a realtor, or anybody that's wanting to go into each brokerage, I guess, because I guess there's benefits to
absolutely
both.
Yep.
companies.
Yep.
And for myself, I'm not a realtor. I'm not wanting to be a realtor, but I'm pretty sure someone out there is wanting to actually hear this information that may want to actually hear it from a realtor that, is experienced as yourself. When you got into KW, the office, and then transitioned to the EXP, what is it? What would you call our brokerage as well?
It's a brokerage.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say the pros and cons from KW, pros and cons from EXP? Like, I want to hear both, good and bad.
Yeah. Okay. So I wouldn't have done it any other. Well, EXP wasn't an option when I started, but I wouldn't have started anywhere else. But KW, looking back, I'd made a good decision there. The training is good. And when you're new, so EXP has a ton of training as well. But when you're new, it's good to be in the mix, so to speak. It's good to learn faces and learn names and to know who to go to, who's going to help you. And KW does have classes a lot of, I don't know what their protocol is per week, but they do have a certain number. So does EXP. And you can attend them in person, which is really good because if you have, and the classes usually aren't that big. They're not full of people. So it's kind of you have more attention if you need it. So you can ask questions and get, and then after the class is over, you can talk to whoever was teaching the class and get one-on-one help. It wasn't that way when I started because when I started there, I kind of started where things were morphing into what they are now. And I was kind of lost my first couple transactions, honestly. Totally lost, had no idea. And they would always say, just get a client. Just get a client. We'll help you. We'll be here. Just get a client. And I was like, I can't get a client. I have no idea what I'm doing. What do I do when I get them? And they're like, just do it. We'll help you. And then I did. And I really, things were evolving and I kind of missed out. But after they got everything squared away again and got a coach and a mentor and all that, then it was much easier. And learning the contracts. And that's why when I say classes, contracts, classes and stuff like that. So that's the good thing about being there and being, with people and stuff. The thing that I didn't really need very, very much was being in an office. I didn't need to be there. Once I got going and was doing, I knew what I was doing and I knew people I could reach out to for help without being in the office. But still attending other things that made me out there, right? So, and then a lot of times there's just office stuff.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And
they're all late.
Yeah, it's like another little world.
High school.
It's high school.
Yeah, it's like a dynamic. Yeah.
So honestly, I did transition, and the reasons why I transitioned were basically just monetary, because EXP doesn't have an office, right? So they don't have to pay for rent. They don't have insurance. They don't have the front desk people. They don't have printers. They don't have, utility bills. They don't have, the kind of insurance you have to pay for. And so with that, EXP is a cloud-based. So all that money comes back to us, and we're owners basically because we get stock. So we're all owners of the company. You get stock every time you reach a milestone. You can buy stock at a discount. And if you buy stock, you can sell it quickly. If you don't buy it, if it's given to you, if it's earned, you have to vest 3 years.
Okay.
So that's another stream of revenue, really. And so with EXP, there was 3 different streams of revenue where we have revenue share. You share the revenue of people that you put in, that you bring in with you. Revenue share, not profit share. So it's a set amount. Doesn't matter how much the brokerage needs to spend and then get a profit and share that. It's a set amount with every transaction that the person under you sells.
Okay.
So there's revenue share, there's your commission, and there's the stocks. So that was the kind of the reason why I left, besides the office junk. And then it all happened at just the right time, because after I'd been at EXP for about a year, COVID happened, and we were already without an office. We were already virtually working. We were already Zooming. We were already doing all that stuff. It just transitioned so perfectly. There was no transition. It was just how we always did business anyway. So that was good. Sometimes I miss being in an office. Sometimes I miss, just the
energy.
Yeah.
Seeing other people.
Yeah. Because, I could stay in my sweats all day long for a week and no one even knows,
She's in the sweats right now.
So
it's nice, huh? But then sometimes
nice.
You're like, oh man, like I should get up and actually like dress up.
Yeah. So when I worked at home, I've been working at home since I was 21. And wasn't happening back then. People didn't work from home in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. That was very rare. And I've been able to do that. So I am used to being disciplined, because you have to be disciplined if you're working at home, because there's so much distraction. You have to not watch TV. You have to not worry about, get out. You do have to get out of bed.
Even by other chores at home.
Right.
Too.
So that's what I do for my breaks. It was like, okay, you know what? I've been sitting here for 4 hours. I need to take a break, do laundry, start dinner, all that stuff is being done. I walk my dog, I go work out, I do whatever.
Yeah.
So I love being at home, honestly. I've just always done that. Except for when I was in the retail stores. Yeah. But that came way later.
Yeah.
So,
so how did you hear about EXP then? Was
actually, I was looking for somewhere else to go.
Already?
Yeah. And I had interviewed at a place and I was ready. I was going. And then a colleague at Keller Williams said, hey, come in my office. This is what I'm going to do. I'm like, what is that? And I had been seeing the EXP sign around, like, because Joe Mail joined and he has signs everywhere. And I kept driving by these signs and I was like, what kind of stupid balloon cartoon logo is that? I was like, I would never go to a brokerage like that. I can't stand that logo. It looks like a cartoon. So my colleague who called me and told me all about it. And I was like, wow. And he said, well, I'm going to go. So if you want to go, come with me. So, and then another very big Keller Williams girl left. And I was like, wow, she's the Keller Williams cheerleader. What is she doing leaving? So I talked to her. And so that was just my
that
decision.
year that you left.
Everybody left. And I was at the like beginning of the exodus.
I remember.
And I was so afraid. So what happened was, this is so bad. So there's a thing called family reunion, Keller Williams, and everybody goes, like all the team lead, everybody. That was the day that I transitioned. So I walked in and I gave my key to the office girl. And I walk in with the key and she's like, no. I said, yes. And I gave her the key. And I did not have to talk to any of them. I had no exit interview. Okay. I had nothing. They were all gone. Yeah. And it made it easier because I really loved a lot of the people who really gave me a head start and, coached me along. And then the girl that was the KW cheerleader, and when I asked her, she's like, we're all still realtors. We'll still work together. We don't have to be in the same office. And that was just a light bulb for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the one thing that I would honestly say as far as like when it did happen, Jordan's my camera. Sorry. Technical difficulty. There you go. The one thing that I noticed once everybody left, it did change the environment in the office. As far as like just a brief story, as far as like how I started almost like my company started, it grew from KW, the Rancho Vista, because they kind of like, they allowed me to be in the office without having to like pay any fees or no one judged me as far as like, hey, who is this kid? Always soliciting everybody. But in my head, I wasn't even trying to solicitate. It was more of just, I wanted to talk to everybody. And I was working for a realtor at the time. I was her assistant for like 3 weeks. That's how excited I was about real estate.
Well, being an assistant kind of.
Yeah, she needed it was one of my friends, Anne. She needed someone to translate emails and then also make cold calls, which I didn't even know how to do in Spanish. I'm like, that's me llamo. And,
that's tough.
Yeah, it was fairly
That's
interesting, but at the time I had just quit teaching, so I had nothing going for like myself. I was just transitioning. It was a big transition as far as like playing music. Then I had nothing, and then she called me. So it was like day and night kind of thing. Like I had a whole day of nothing, and then she basically called me. She's like, "Hey, do you know anybody?" And I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I just quit my jobs, like I just quit music, and I literally have nothing else to do. And I no longer have friends because all my friends were my band. So I'm free as much as you need me." And she's like, "Okay, well, you could start this week." And that's kind of how I started. And of course, I got to meet Hadia. She needed video. So I was doing both the assistant job, and then I was also doing testimonials for the mortgage at KW. So by doing both, I had freedom of walking around. And at the time, I wasn't even telling anybody that I was a photographer. It was more off of just when they would see me with the camera with the testimonials, then they would approach me and they would say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and do you do real estate?" And I would say no. So it was more just by accident that the real estate happened, because I was just solely doing video. I had no idea what real estate photography was. Once I got used to the office and once I got used to the faces, it became more of friendships. And that's all it really was, because I wasn't announcing myself as a photographer. I was just Irvin, and don't know what I'm doing here. You guys all look like professionals. That's kind of crazy. I don't even comb my hair. You guys all smell like cologne. You guys all have suits. And I honestly thought everyone was rich at that office. Because at the time, I had like a little Toyota Corolla that my bumper was falling off. I had gaffer tape on it. Everyone had a BMW. Everyone had a, Mercedes Benz at the, the parking lot.
Leases.
And, yeah, exactly. Now I know. Yeah, but at that moment or at that time, the office was massive to me. I was like, wow, this is a real estate office. In my head, everyone's rich. Everyone has a lot of money.
That's so funny.
Everyone has nice cars. Everyone's super professional. Luckily, like I said, I became friends with all the realtors at that time, and I got to know Rami, and me and him, because we're around the same age. We got really close just because of the age, I guess. We just our dialogue.
Yeah, you connected.
It's fairly similar. From there, I got to know his family, and then I got to know his aunt. Once I got to know his aunt, Rima Rafay, that's where it all it blew up, because once someone sees what the main person or the queen bee is doing, everyone follows. Oh, what is she using? What is she doing? Because she was the one that was producing a lot of listings at the time at that office. And
she's now at EXP too.
Yeah, exactly. From her, I basically my name blew up because I was always next to her. And I remember, and I do want to bring her in, Ileana. She actually told me, or it was either Ileana or Doris, because they were both in the team at the time. Yeah. They had told me that they didn't want to approach me because they thought I was exclusive to Rima, because I was always hanging out in her office, but not because I needed to, because I liked being around her. Like she at the moment that I met her, it became more of a friend, mentor relationship, where I could ask her anything, or I could basically just tell her anything, and she would just kind of already give me information, and I liked it. And because she already knew where I was at in my life, and she already knew my work ethic, she respected her time, or she respected the things that she was giving me, but not allowing her to say, "Hey, because I'm already on the top, I'm not going to give you information." She was like, no, willingly giving me everything, as much as information that she could, which I appreciated. And of course, until this day, I'm still really good friends with not only her, but her whole family. Like I know everyone, her nieces, her all her relatives, as far as like immediate, her daughters, her son. So I got to meet everyone. So from there, like I said, from that family, like my company just kind of grew.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but like by accident though. It was like it was literally just like, oh, little
it was
kid
meant to be
walking around. I'm like, oh, little. Hi, my name is Irvin. Everyone's like, you smell nice. Yeah, that's my little story as far as
I didn't know that you were with. I knew you from Cindy.
Yeah. And Cindy was my second realtor. So Cindy found me via Sam Shamoun. He was my first realtor ever that had ever used me for real estate photography, and I want to post those pictures. I have them somewhere, but they're disgusting.
Well, if you have the address, I could look them up. Good thing I didn't stalk you off those. No, but I'm sure they were probably fine. It's just your level of expectation for yourself is a lot higher.
Now more than ever. Now seeing that, I'm pretty sure if I were to start now, knowing that there's more competition doing what we do, no one would want to hire me off of those pictures. But back then, because it was fairly new, it was almost acceptable because everyone was still shooting the houses via their cell phones.
Our own phones, and people still do. And I'm like, one thing that I do is every time I list a house, I immediately send that to the seller so that they can look it over and read what I wrote, and if there's any mistakes or if they want to add something or whatever, and look at the pictures. And I see these listings with, the guy in the mirror in the bathroom holding his cell phone, taking the picture, a picture of the cabinet or, the countertop. And I'm thinking, why would somebody hire this person? But they probably don't see that. Well, I guess on Zillow, they'd be on Zillow, but I don't know.
I think they're more referral based now. Either a family member or a really close friend, and of course,
you mean listings like a realtor?
Yeah, the realtor.
They could be. But still, if I'm going to pay someone,
well, it's a percentage. That's what I was going to say. Also, sometimes because a percentage that they're giving them is so low, and I've met so many realtors already that've been doing it for years, and when we tell them our prices, they're so surprised. I'm like, why do you guys charge so much? I'm like, we don't charge.
You don't.
As far as like what I see in the market, we are in the middle. Like we cater to our environment, and that's kind of what we want to do. But I've met realtors that have been doing it for 15, 20 years, and we tell them our prices, and they're like, why do you charge so much for so many?
Well, you give a drone.
Yeah.
You do all that too.
But because of the percentage that they're so used to getting from the actual seller. And that's in their heads, they're like, oh, I'm used to the 1 to 2%. That's what I'm going to get, or 1.2. So they're not used to, there's no profit for them because they just want the house, and they're just going to sell themselves so low that, of course, now they come to us thinking, hey, I'm going to get a discount. No, you're not. Like, I'm not going to give you a discount. Every now and then, if it's a first time client,
I can understand.
We do our best. Sure. We are like, hey, and I try my best to upsell if it's needed. And I do it where I'm always telling them, like, consciously, like, the layout of the house needs a little bit more because I'm seeing unique items, and if I take just one photo of the living room, I'm not going to be able to see the exit, or I'm not going to see the fireplace well enough. I'm just basically throwing them a picture, and we do that to the point because we've actually had clients come back at us letting us know, hey, I didn't get this picture of this, and I always go back to what I've said, the dialogue. Remember when I was there, I let you know, I was telling you that the layout of the house needed a little bit more photos. And even though you only wanted the bare minimum, we oversupplied either way, but you're still asking for more. So now what we have to do now is just remember, and that's it. Because now I can't say it's my fault because I over-delivered, even though you wanted me to be limited on the package. So it's no longer my fault. So just remember the layout of the house, the square footage of the house. If it's a small little 1,000 square feet house, you could definitely get away with 10 photos. But if it's 2,000 square feet and the layout's very spread out, you're going to need at least 20, 25, 30, 35 photos because you're also needing the outside stuff too. And if there's like a lake, or there's a nice view, there's a mountain, that all adds up to the sell of the house. But they're thinking, oh, I just need one picture of the kitchen. I just need one picture of this. And I just, so they're not overly thinking as far as like long term. And I understand that you don't want to over deliver. Like I remember when I first started, even Rima told me that her old photographer was giving her 60 photos. I'm like, how is this possible? Like, where are you getting?
I don't want 60 photos.
Like, where are you getting
I don't even
these?
want that. And when they're in the MLS, I don't want to click through 60. I don't.
Yeah, you're seeing like the sidewalk on the where the gate is at.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you showing me this? Like, what is this? Like, a walkway? Like, someone's gonna want to actually go and see the house and experience it rather than you showing every single corner. So yeah, that's kind of where my experience came from too. I'm like, what I don't want to see because my attention span's not it's not going to go too far as like if I'm clicking, because once again, I was an assistant
for 3 weeks.
for 3 weeks. So I would send out these comps that she would tell me, like, oh, my client needs at this, and I got her everything from MLS. I got to learn a little bit of MLS and everything. So she was telling me like, hey, just send this out. Okay, I'm like, okay, sending it out. Cool. From there, I started to notice these photos too. That's where I got encouragement as well, because I was noticing the quality of these photos. And like yourself, back then, everyone was doing it via cell phone. So when this realtor approached me and I told him, hey, I don't do this stuff, but I'm more than willing to try it, I was a little nervous, but because I was already witnessing the quality that was already out there, it almost allowed me to say, it can't be any worse than that.
That's true. Yeah,
and I won't be in the bathroom photo.
Yeah, I already know how to use Photoshop. I could technically take that stuff out. Yeah.
And put the toilet seat down.
Yeah, 100%.
So many of them are not. That's like 101.
That was like common sense to me.
Right?
No one told me that. No one ever said, hey, put the toilet seat down.
Yeah, but you're looking at it from an artist's point of view.
It's
you're not
hygienic.
Well,
hygienic. I'm like, why do I want to see the water of the toilets? Like, this is
yeah,
pristine.
that's true.
Like,
but a lot of people don't look at the big. They don't.
No.
They're like bathroom, boom, done.
Yeah.
They don't.
And even selfies, when I see the girls taking selfies in toilets, I'm like, why? What is
For one thing, why are you doing a selfie in the bathroom? You could probably find a better backdrop.
Like, I'm not even looking at her at that point. Like, please close that lid. That is gross. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, there are certain things that I did learn via experience, and other things just like common sense too.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like just going through that process myself, like I got to really understand the system, building my system as well, that no one really taught me. It was just step by step, like via experience and like my little failures of like, oh, you forgot to do this, and don't forget, because that feeling of just like you didn't deliver what you wanted to deliver, even though they didn't even expect that.
Right.
I was like, no, I need to give that, and I don't want to feel this anymore. And I remember my first house, and I already said his name, so I don't want to say it anymore. My first listing, he didn't like my pictures.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't. And you said it again. I'm going to go.
I like Sam. He was there. Yeah.
He still uses me to this day. He still uses me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't like the pictures because he had already compared pictures via the next neighbor, and that photographer was already experienced. And even though I over-delivered and I gave him a video and everything, it was so cheap. So cheap. You would just, I don't even want to say the price. It was very cheap. But then Cindy liked my pictures. And I was amazed. I'm like, you like those pictures? She said, yeah. But she had just started too at the time.
Yeah.
So for her, once again, the whole cell phone to camera was night and day. And I had told her, I'm like, that was my first listing. I will try my best to do what I can. But I had told her that was my first listing. I don't want to overpromise. Of course, my price was fairly low to the point where I didn't feel guilt if I did have that first experience of quality.
Yeah.
So I made sure that even though my camera was expensive, even though my drone was expensive, even though my speedlights were expensive, whatever I had as far as my equipment, I didn't price it on the product yet because my experience wasn't there. And I think that's something that a lot of photographers make the mistake on, because they go and buy very expensive cameras, very expensive equipment, like when it comes to the lenses, tripods, all this other stuff, so that now they think that they are now that budget. When your experience as far as like what your quality and your delivery is not being met via what your equipment is technically priced at. So I thought of that even then. I'm like, no, I want to make sure that they are happy with the product. And of course, she loved my photos, and I did learn a lot because Sam only gave me a day to learn. He told me one day, and the next day I was at the house. So I was on Google and YouTube that night. I was like, what is real estate photography?
Oh, gosh.
And then, of course, Cindy gave me like a week. So I had a week to prepare. I'm like, okay, I got to really learn this. I'm like, what is HDR? What is wide angle? What is this?
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm shocked because you know so much, and your lighting is amazing. And the way you even have, Israel and Jordan doing the same quality as you. That's something to be said for you and teaching, and because it doesn't matter. I mean, of course, I always like meeting with you and stuff. I like meeting with all of you. it's always good. It doesn't matter who took the pictures.
Yeah.
They're always really good.
But that was that was a system that I was saying that I had to develop via myself because I was teaching
But you taught yourself that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't that long ago. Honestly.
I don't even know how long.
It wasn't that long. 5 years ago?
5, 6.
6 maybe, yeah. And you're up there with, and I don't even know any other photographers in this, but I don't care. I don't want to know.
Yeah,
but
she don't care.
No, I don't.
Solicitate.
No, but solicitate. Okay, so one thing about being at EXP, we have one broker. So like Keller Williams and all that, they're independently owned and operated offices. All the other brokerages are. We have one broker for the whole state. So our broker office is in San Ramon. So I get a lot of solicitation from, up there.
Wow, yeah.
Because everyone thinks you're from up there because that's where your broker is, because it's very unusual to have only one for the state. So I see other prices and I see other quality of work and stuff. And
it's actually getting more popular now. When I started, it was maybe 2 photographers out here doing it, and I was maybe the 3rd one coming up. The difference between myself and I would say them, and I would actually go off of realtors too, because you guys are independent contractors, is how bad do you want to do it and how much are you willing to sacrifice to actually get to a point where your experience matches your price. And that's kind of where my head led into, because it was necessary. My thing was I needed money. Remember, my bumper was falling off.
Duct tape's cheap.
I couldn't afford cologne.
Just rub on it.
I wanted to match the smell.
That's hilarious.
Yes, but it was more of like I needed money, so it's just like you need to learn and you need to do this. It wasn't the want; it was more of a need. It became a want later on, because then I'm like, oh, recognition, and I'm like, okay, now it's a business. And now I do want this because I do see the benefits, and we're kind of like using real estate photography, videography, almost like a stepping stone for everyone that's coming into InView Media to say, hey, we're teaching you this craft and you're making money, but understand we are also creatives. We have an office, we have a studio now, we have a podcasting room. We're now creating a space for them so that they could become, I guess their minds could navigate further out than just real estate photography and videography, because that's what I wanted back then. I wanted an environment where I could go and create. Now they could do it if they want to, though. It's more on them that if they want to become better at their photography or their craft, I'm here, she's here, the space is here. So it's more of like, okay, it's not just real estate. It's more than just real estate now. It's more we're creating something for the whole team, where we're doing skits now. We have our own podcasting.
Skits.
Skits. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think me and Ariana were talking that we want to join or actually do a short movie.
Like a short film.
Like a little short film and start going to small competitions, stuff like that. It's like the foundation is always going to be real estate. The foundation is always going to be service those that brought us to this point, and never forget, but always remember always remember that we're still creatives as well too, because that's kind of where I guess my motivation as far as like what drives me is more of that factor than the money, because a lot of people go off of just the one thing, which is, I know money is very important and it's the fundamental of everything, but I don't want it to be where that's my whole life. I want it to be like what got you into this position, and it was your creativity side. So what else could your creativity side create, not just the money? And hopefully at one point you'll see like me at a little cinema, like
on the boulevard.
But I think it all feeds into each other too, like even with real estate, like us continually staying creative, because real estate like is becoming so connected on social media, like marketing yourself. So now we have to create content that's going to stand out. Now we have to be able to create content that not only stays up to date with what's going on social media, but is even like ahead of it. So we want to start like staying ahead and making things on our own, where we're not just doing real estate and doing the same thing over and over. It's like we want to continually get better at it and do better and be able to make ourselves stand out all the time.
Yeah.
Very
and of
good.
course, via meeting you, I got to meet Jordan's mom.
Yes.
And via meeting her mom, what
His
happened
mom.
the following day?
You
I met
hired Jordan.
And Jordan, if you could go to camera number 4.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Hi,
Jordan.
Hello. Yeah. It was pretty instantaneous too. Like,
do you like my transition?
Yeah.
oh man.
you like how I did that?
Right. And then just to add a little spice onto it, the foundation that he was able to give me for real estate photography is really unbeatable, to the point where people are giving me compliments on my photography when it's his photography. You know, I'm just following the sequence. And, you know, he did really good. And that's another selling point of this entire job was, hey, yeah, we're going to do real estate, but we're a production company. So as you get this and as we grow here, we're going to fall into anything that has to do with production. And it's honestly, it's been such an awesome time. You know, it's been great.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so
yeah.
good.
And when I met Jordan, it was night and day. And he didn't have no experience at all when it came down to even using a camera. He maybe a little
But he's a creative too.
He's a creative, but I liked his, I think when we talk, I guess there's a level of dialogue that I enjoy. And only a few people could actually go and banter like me and Jordan banter, as far as like going into psychology, human behavior studies. And I already knew, when I first met him, I didn't know him at all. The first time seeing Jordan, he was sitting where I'm at and I was where you're at, and it was the interview. And of course I asked him the same questions I ask everybody. How long have you been a photographer? Do you know what this is? You know, all the technical stuff. After that, I go after the personality.
But he said no on all of that.
He said no on all of it. He said no. He's sorry. Okay, I was like, all right, failure. And then from there, I go after personality, because we already had people come into the team as far as experienced photographers or experienced videographers. And I think it goes off of it. It may look good on paper, but in person, it's a different story. So I had to then learn from that experience as well. So even though Jordan had no experience on paper, technically, I needed to know what his persona was and who he was. And at the time when he came in here, we started, like I said, we went off of the technical stuff first, and then I kind of went and gave him the story as far as like where I want InView Media to go, and he was fairly excited. And I felt that. And then also, I also liked his, like I said, his personality, but his dialogue. I'm like, okay, he's an intellect. I could definitely mold an intellect, because I'm not an intellect. I'm more of the person that is becoming the intellect. But he's already there, and I could actually at least match it a little bit, you know? So I told him, okay, if you're going to do this, understand it's an internship, and because you have no experience, I can't really pay you, but I'm willing to give you everything as far as like my time. Like, I'm going to give you everything. If you are with me, if you say I'm with you Monday to Friday, I'm giving you that time, and I'm more than happy to give you that time. And that's what he did. He was with me almost for like 2 to 3 months, every single day, like literally every single day. And I'm like, okay, from that, like, that's what I mean. Like the whole paper thing, being good on paper and being good on person is completely different. He showed me the willingness of wanting to learn. And even though it took him a little bit longer, because he was coming in from no experience of using a camera, it was from scratch. But I also noticed too that I enjoyed it more because he didn't have any bad habits that I needed to break. And that's what I also learned from coming in from bringing in an experienced photographer or videographer, is that everything that I said was technically golden to his ears, and everything else was not. So everything that I was telling him, like, hey, position your tripod like this, make sure you're doing this. He was going by T, like, okay, this is it, and that there's no other way to do it. Now now that now that they have their experience as far as like they gotten the foundation, I always tell them, okay, now that's where you got the foundation well enough. Now I need you to become yourself. But you actually understand you can't forget certain rooms, you can't forget certain angles. Now go off and give me something that I didn't teach you. And I think that's what I enjoy the most when it comes down to the mentorship and the training too, because I like how they develop their eye now, and now they're actually doing the houses, and like he said, no one could actually tell who's taking the photo at this point. So that's kind of what I want to continue as far as like,
it's great. It's great for your business, because it gives you more opportunity to serve more.
Yeah.
And you know the product is still going to be good.
Yeah. But finding another person like Jordan, it's not
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy at all.
Yeah.
I guess like it's just more of a
What a compliment.
yeah, it's a hit and miss. It's a hit and miss. Yeah, but yeah, we're all getting there. You know, we're all learning. We're all within the same age, so we all get along.
Yeah.
I can't say, and this is the one thing that I always told both Israel and Jordan, like, I don't ever want to feel like your boss. Just do what you need to do, and that's it. Like
that is so good. That's the way I was in my retail stores, and we were friends. We were friends, and my husband would say, "Why are you working Sunday? Why are you opening on Sunday?" I said, "Because no one else wants to do it." "Well, you're the boss." I said, "Well, I have to do it too. If I'm going to expect them to do it, I have to be willing to do it too." So I totally understand.
Yeah. The worst feeling that anybody could tell me, or the worst feeling that anybody could give me, actually, I would say, is the idea that I am now your boss. And I don't want to feel that, because now I'm obligated to look on your shoulder, or like over your shoulder. And for me, like, I'm not your babysitter. I'm not your parent. Like, I'm just the guy that is allowing you and providing you this aspect that I grew, and you're coming in and just do your work and you'll get paid. You know, it's this equal exchange on both sides. You're going to get something out of it. I'm getting something out of it. So we're both winning. But once something is unbalanced, that's where I come in. I'm like, oh, now I have to talk to you.
Yeah.
Now I have to talk to you about responsibilities. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then for me, a cool thing was I did the dance studio, and I was looking for people to take it as seriously as I was. So seeing Irvin, he was in the same path in a different field and a different time. And something that I took back from it was like, let me be the employee that I wish I had. So it's like, coming into this, I understand how hard it is to keep employees, to find business, and everything was going very smoothly. So I was like, okay, what can I do to help this out? But I'm also gaining a skill, you know, like a lot of people then would have to go to school, pay for this. And, you know, it's all right here. You tell me, oh, I just need to give you like 2 months of my life. Easy, man, easy. You know, I'm not paying for this, you know, it's like, so yeah, it was, man.
And we ate a lot of fast food too.
Oh boy.
That probably didn't help as much, but you know, free food. Hey, you know.
I have a funny Jordan story.
Go for it. We want to hear it.
Yes.
Which one?
When we did the rental, with the tenant in there. And so because there was a tenant in there, I was kind of hanging out with her and just letting him do the pictures, because I was like, I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable, you know. And you said you have to make sure they don't forget a room or whatever. Well, Jordan didn't forget any of the rooms.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
And I trust you guys' photos so much. I just like stick them in. Okay, here's bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, stick them in there. My client calls me furious. "Get those photos off the MLS right now." I'm like, what? What happened? "I can't have the room with the stripper pole."
Oh my God.
There was a bedroom in there with the stripper pole right in there. Oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, I didn't see it past the massage table.
Oh, wow.
So I had to pull those out.
Oh, I think I remember
He
that.
delivered. He did every room. And that was the house that the bird...
Oh my Lord.
The bird flew out on us too. She had a bird, and all of a sudden this bird's flying out, lands on him. And he's like, ah!
Yeah, I immediately start freaking out. Paula's laughing at me, and then give it maybe 15 minutes. All of a sudden, I hear Paula screaming, and I see the bird on her shoulder now.
And that was a fun one.
Wow, what an experience!
That's funny.
Oh yeah.
And the tenant never said anything about the pole?
No. I'm sure she probably. I don't know.
I'm sure she uses it for exercise.
It was strictly exercise, I'm sure, with
yes.
the massage table that was right next to it.
That's what.
I did ask her about the massage table, though. I was like, I didn't see the stripper pole, but I did see the massage table, and I said, "Oh, are you a massage therapist?" You know, trying to make conversation. She said, "No, I do eyelashes." Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
So. I don't know.
On a massage table.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. We all have interesting stories as far as like going to these houses. Sometimes we have amazing stories where we meet amazing people, and sometimes they just keep me there, where I've actually got invited to dinner.
Wow.
They've gifted me stuff. Sometimes they got my number where they wanted me to do family photos. So I have an abundance amount of good stories, but I also have the balance of the bad.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You never know. Like sometimes like I don't even think about it anymore as far as like when I walk into a house, because I'm pretty sure if you're going in new, you're like, I'm going to go into someone's house, into every room, sometimes into their closets. And now I don't even think about these things. Like I'm like, oh, just nonchalant's my house now.
Yep. Yeah. You have to be that way.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
you get used to it.
Yeah, you definitely get used to it. Yeah. I do like it when people are there, because I could definitely navigate the house as far as like if there is anything that I would want to move and I think it's personal, I could just tell the seller or the tenant, is there any way that you could move it because security reasons? But then sometimes when there's tenants or sellers there, sometimes they're always in the way too.
Especially if it's a tenant, they usually probably don't want you there.
Yeah, they don't want us there.
Because they don't want to move.
Yeah, and of course they're very clean, so you know they're already pushing you out the door, because I have a feeling that they're embarrassed as well. But that embarrassment comes off of like they
knew it was happening.
And I've had tenants saying like, I didn't know I had to clean. I'm like, what? Like, how did you, like 2 to 2, someone's taking pictures of the house so that they could sell it, get the best price, and you're telling the realtor, I'm like, I didn't know, no one told me I had to clean. I'm like, what kind of question is this? Like that and it's an adult, like someone's like 40, 45. I'm like, okay, I could definitely see why certain things are why they are for yourselves. And I'm like, okay, it is what it is. But you know, it's just certain people, like I said, you have the good and the bad. Unfortunately for me, I've gone used to the more of the good than the bad. There are days that I've gone the bad where it's kind of like lingered through the evening. I'm like, oh, I wish I could forget this person already, because it's just like, I didn't want to feel this way today. Like, and they just allowed me to, they put me in this position where now I have to be mad in the evening time. I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's so annoying. But
yeah, you got to let them go. Got to let it go.
Yeah. And then sometimes we have some super nice houses that I'll never forget too. Just the look of the house, the staging. So I'm like, oh, one day my living room will look like this.
I feel the same way, honestly. You know,
the furniture, the TV.
I know, I get so many ideas, so I'm like looking at like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
The way they set that up. Oh.
Yeah.
Who staged this?
Yeah,
house?
And I'm pretty sure we've gotten ideas just even trying to stage our studio. It's not as good as whoever stages the houses, but we try.
It's good.
Yeah, we have this studio space and we have the next studio space, which is more like living room, coffee, like space. We're trying to make it more personalized for whoever wants to rent it out. This is more we're used to how this looks. So we're continuing just using this space for our podcast.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, well, now looking at this space and looking at the other space, it's like, I'm like, okay, which one do I like more? But no, I'm used to this already. Yeah. I'm used to the table, so.
Yeah.
And even though it's a little wobbly, but it is what it is.
Have my husband come fix that for you.
What happened?
No, I put that up twice.
Oh, no, you're good. No, I saw you. Yeah, I tend to linger on these podcasts sometimes, but I know you probably have other things to do. Pretty sure you have houses to sell and houses to give us. So
yes, I'm off to a listing appointment.
Yes, thank you. So before we end this podcast, I want to give you the last chance, or as far as like anything that you want to give advice to anybody that's out there, there's either an entrepreneur or a realtor, or maybe your younger self, like any advice.
Well, entrepreneur, I mean, being a realtor is kind of that. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but that's a good way to do it. Honestly, of all the, I don't want to call them jobs, careers that I've had, this is the one that's most fulfilling in many ways, because you're dealing with people on a very personal level, and you know everything about them. You know their finances. I mean, even probably family and friends, you don't know their financial situations, right? And we know all of that. you know about their families because they're shopping for their family, right? For a home, you know if they have pets, you know everything. And to be able to get them from one stage of their life to help them to get to the next, whether it's selling or buying or both, or starting to be an investor or anything like that. It's just so meaningful. And I've never worked so hard, but the reward the money's great. It's the first time in all my entrepreneurial ventures that I'm actually paid where I can actually live without worrying about finances. But the other part of it is really the most important part. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paula, for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, and I hope we actually get to do it again.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Fun.
Yeah.
And of course, I always enjoy the conversations we have with the listings. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on the podcast, because it's always easy to talk to you.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of common ground as far as like dialogue with us as well. And we crack jokes every now and then. So,
every now and then.
You know, that's my biggest enjoyment as far as like when I see someone that I want to be around with, I'm like, okay, I know I'm being myself because there's no more of the boundary of like breaking on ice. I don't have to break on ice. It's like we already see each other and like, oh, you're here. And then right away we start talking about whatever else we were talking about previously. And sometimes it's months.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the guys also go and do the houses for you.
Yep.
So sometimes I don't see you for months. So
Yeah.
like, it's always very enjoyable to actually see a good friend, you know.
For me too. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming through.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And Jordan, thank you for coming through again.
Thanks,
and
Jordan.
your camera's off.
Yeah, Jordan.
It's all right. It's his first day on the switcher. So
Anytime. Hey.
yeah. So thank you everybody for listening, and for those that are watching on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe so we could get more viewerships.
Yes, definitely.
All right. I'll see you guys on the next one.
See you guys.